She married him for peace, but peace was the last thing Daniel Carter carried in his shadow. Imagine this. A princess raised among crystal towers, bound by duty to end a 12-year galactic war. And her reward? A forced marriage to a quiet human farmer. A nobody. A diplomatic insult. Or so she thought, because on the day her people returned, not to bring her home, but to kill every living soul on the colony, she finally learned the truth. Her husband wasn't a farmer, he was humanity's most dangerous secret. If you're into HFY tales where humanity surprises everyone, including their enemies, hit like. And if you enjoy deep dive sci-fi stories like this one, feel free to subscribe so you don't miss the next adventure. And hey, sharing this with a friend who loves wild plot twists? Always appreciated. War had consumed their galaxy for 12 brutal years. Entire star systems burned, fleets vanished, and two civilizations, humanity and the Valoran Dominion, dragged themselves toward collapse. When the ceasefire finally came, it wasn't victory. It was exhaustion. So the Valorans demanded something symbolic, something irreversible. A marriage. High Priestess Kaith Vora, daughter of the Supreme Council, agreed to bind herself to a human for the sake of peace. She expected a general, a diplomat, a man of power. Instead, humanity sent a farmer. Daniel Carter arrived in plain work clothes, hands rough, posture calm. Kaith felt humiliated. Her people sent royalty. The humans sent a man who smelled faintly of soil and sun. But something was off. The human admirals didn't treat him like a farmer. They didn't joke, didn't relax around him. They watched him the way you watch a weapon. Carefully, respectfully, with the quiet awareness that mishandling it could end your life. Kaith ignored it. She had a duty. She married him. 3 days later, they left for his colony world, Haven's Ridge. And for 6 months, she endured a quiet life among green mountains, wooden homes, and people who smiled too easily for a civilization that had nearly been wiped out. Daniel worked sunrise to sunset, steady and gentle, never pushing, never demanding. Just planting, fixing, building. But she noticed things. How he caught a falling 100-kilogram crate with one hand. How he swung an axe with perfect machine-like precision. How scars, deep, strange, unexplainable scars covered his back. No farmer carried wounds like those. She searched databases, found nothing. His military records were sealed, or erased. Still, he remained patient, kind, a quiet presence in the home they shared but barely understood. And slowly, against her will, Kaith began to respect the man she had once despised. Then, one warm morning in early summer, the sky tore open. 3 Valoran warships descended, her people's ships. But they were not here to rescue her. They were Crimson Vanguard extremists, sworn to restart the war. The first bombs fell on the farmlands. Screams echoed across the valley. Kaith froze. Daniel didn't. Get inside, he said calmly. Now. His voice had changed. Harder. Sharper. These are my people, she whispered. They're not here for you, he replied. They're here to slaughter the colony. Thousands of armored soldiers dropped to the ground like a dark tide, advancing toward helpless civilians. Kaith felt the world tilt. Daniel, what do we do? He didn't answer at first. He simply walked into the house and returned with a long black case. When he opened it, her breath stopped. Inside was armor, scarred, matte black, marked with a symbol she'd never seen. A winged skull surrounded by stars. Not ceremonial armor. Not military standard. This was something older, deadlier. Daniel strapped it on with practiced ease. What are you? Kaith whispered. A man who made a promise, he said, and I'm running out of time to keep it. He handed her a backpack filled with supplies. Take the settlers to the mining caves. Don't come out until the fighting stops. And you? Her voice cracked. He looked at her then, really looked. A quiet, steady warmth flickered in his eyes. I'll buy you time. You can't fight an army. She grabbed his arm. There are thousands. Daniel placed his hand over hers. I know. Then he walked toward the battlefield and vanished into smoke. What followed would become legend. The first 90 soldiers sent to secure the road never returned. The next 100 found only bodies, killed with unsettling precision. More squads followed. They died too. Daniel wasn't fighting like a soldier. He fought like a phantom. Buildings collapsed on vanguard units. Vehicles exploded before anyone reached them. Soldiers screamed warnings that cut off mid-sentence. Commanders tried forming defensive lines. Daniel slipped through them. He struck fast, disappeared faster, and by sunset, 2,000 elite Valoran soldiers were gone. Kaith crouched in the caves with the settlers, listening to fragmenting radio chatter. Terror bled through every transmission. He's not human. He's the one from Karath. The devil. He's the devil. And Kaith knew that name. Every Valoran did. The devil of Korath Fields. The myth. The phantom killer who turned battles into massacres. He was supposed to be propaganda. A ghost story told to scare young recruits. But he wasn't a myth. He was her husband. By nightfall, the vanguard begged their commander for orbital bombardment. But as the warships prepared to fire, all three erupted in balls of flame. Charges had been planted hours before the invasion even began. Daniel Carter had known. At dawn, with the valley scorched and silent, Daniel approached the last remaining Valoran commander. 3,000 soldiers formed a circle around him, weapons raised. Daniel walked straight through them. Shots missed. Blades swung through empty space. Bodies dropped like falling leaves. Kaith watched from the cave entrance, heart racing, breath caught. Fear should have filled her, but didn't. She felt awe and sorrow and something dangerously close to pride. By sunrise, the battle was over. Daniel kneeled in the dirt, armor cracked, exhausted. A man who had saved hundreds, but carried the weight of thousands he hadn't. 3 hours later, a human battle group arrived. Not to rescue the colony, to retrieve him. Admiral Holloway approached and saluted. Sergeant Major Carter. The council was concerned. Kaith turned on her. You let him fight alone. We knew if anyone survived, it would be him. Daniel didn't look up. I'm done. I'm not returning to the Wraith Corps. You won't have to, Holloway said quietly. The Corps is gone. You're the last ghost. You've earned your peace. When she left, Kaith sat beside Daniel. The man of secrets. The man of ghosts. You could have told me, she whispered. He finally met her eyes. Would have changed how you saw me. She thought about the months on the farm, the quiet mornings, the patience, the way he tried, every day, to be gentle in a universe that had forced him to be a weapon. She shook her head. No, but now, I understand why they sent you. For the first time, he smiled, tired, soft, real. Around them, the colony began to rebuild. Children stepped out of caves. Sunlight touched burned earth and made it warm again. Kaith squeezed his scarred hand. I'm married well, she whispered. Daniel squeezed back. For the first time in years, he believed it. The morning the invasion began, the valley was calm. Too calm for a world that had once survived a galactic war. Haven's Ridge had always seemed safe to Kaith Vora, far from her people's battles, far from the shattered star lanes that still carried the ashes of 12 long years of conflict. But safety, she learned that day, was only an illusion. Kaith was tending the garden Daniel had taught her to care for, hands in the soil, sun on her silver skin, when the rumble started. At first, she mistook it for thunder rolling across the mountains. Then the clouds split apart and the sky bled fire. 3 warships descended, Valoran ships. Her breath hitched. For one foolish heartbeat, she hoped her people had come to bring her home, to end the strange marriage she'd entered to save 2 civilizations. But the first bombs fell before she could finish the thought. Fields erupted into flame. Shock waves slammed against the houses. Screams tore through the settlement as colonists ran for their lives. Daniel appeared beside her like a shadow rising out of the earth, silent, controlled, eyes blazing with a cold clarity she had never seen in him. Inside, he said, Those are Valoran vessels, she stammered. My people. No, his jaw tightened. Not your people. The Crimson Vanguard. Fanatics. They're here to restart the war. Her pulse froze. The Vanguard had no limits. No mercy. They would slaughter everyone just to ignite old hatred. Daniel, what are we going to do? She whispered. He didn't answer. Not with words. He went inside the house and returned carrying a long, reinforced case. He knelt, opened it, and Kate felt her entire world tilt. Armor. Weapons. A symbol of a winged skull surrounded by stars. The mark of something she didn't recognize but instinctively feared. Daniel slid on the armor with muscle memory born from repetition, not training. "What are you?" she asked. His hands paused. A soft, painful exhale left him. "Someone who should have died a long time ago," he said. "But didn't." He stood tall, armored, transformed. "Take the settlers," he continued. "Lead them to the mining tunnels. Stay hidden. No matter what you hear, don't come back." "You're going alone?" Kate's voice cracked. "Daniel, there are thousands." 8,000, he corrected quietly. "Then you'll die." He looked at her then, really looked, and something in his eyes softened. "So be it," he said, "but I won't let them touch you, or the people here." He reached up and brushed a strand of her silver hair behind her ear, gentle, almost reverent. "Go," he whispered. There was nothing left to say. Kate ran. She gathered settlers. She led them through burning fields and choking smoke until they reached the caves. And all the while, behind her, she heard the distant eruption of gunfire. Daniel had begun his war. The battle reports came in through a scavenged radio, whispered, terrified voices trembling through static. "One man. He's taking them apart. He's behind us. He's everywhere. Run, just run." Kate clutched the receiver, heart pounding, every breath a prayer she didn't know how to form. He was fighting alone. A farmer? No. A ghost in armor, carving through an invasion force trained to crush civilizations. She remembered the scars on his back, the precision in his movements, the way human admirals had watched him at their wedding, not with amusement, but with caution. Pieces fell into place. The Devil of Korath fields, the phantom killer whispered about during the war, the nightmare who could break armies with his bare hands. A myth, everyone said, but myths didn't wear armor under their beds. And myths didn't whisper the names of the dead while they slept. Daniel Carter wasn't a farmer. He wasn't even a soldier. He was a weapon. The last remnant of a human project no one spoke of, something built for war and buried in peace. Kate pressed her hand to her lips as the ground trembled with distant detonations. She had married a human to prevent a war, and now she was watching him single-handedly stop one. Hours passed. Nights swallowed the valley. The battle intensified. The vanguard tried overwhelming him with numbers. Failed. They tried coordinated strikes. Failed. They tried retreating. Failed. Every desperate transmission ended the same way. "He's here." By midnight, half their force was gone. By 2 a.m., their ships were exploding in orbit, detonations placed by a man who had apparently sabotaged them before the invasion even began. He knew. He had known. Kate's legs trembled as she listened. This wasn't bravery. This wasn't fury. This was a man fulfilling a promise long before she ever met him. At dawn, the last scream cut through the radio, and then silence. A silence so heavy she couldn't breathe. When the settlers finally emerged from the caves, the valley lay broken. Charred earth, smoking mechs, shattered armor glowing in the morning light. And Daniel. He stood alone in the center of the battlefield, helmet off, face streaked with soot and blood, looking less like a hero and more like a man forced to reopen every scar he'd once buried. Kate ran to him. She didn't care about the bodies. She didn't care about the politics. She only cared about the man who'd walked through an army for her. When she reached him, she didn't speak. She simply touched his shoulder. He looked at her, tired, hollow, older than he had been the day before. "I told you not to come out yet," he murmured. "You're my husband," she whispered, "and I go where you go." He blinked slowly, as if trying to absorb the meaning behind her words. Before he could, engines roared overhead. A human battle group descended. Admirals, medics, soldiers swarming the battlefield. Admiral Patricia Holloway stepped forward. "Sergeant Major Carter, well done." Kate turned on her, fury burning in her chest. You knew he was here, and you didn't send help." "We did," Holloway said. Her gaze settled on Daniel with something between pride and guilt. He was the last wraith, the last ghost. We trusted him more than any fleet. Kate grabbed Daniel's hand. He didn't pull away. "And now," she demanded. "Now," the Admiral said softly, "he's free." Daniel exhaled, a slow, shuddering breath, one that sounded like release. When the Admiral left, Kaif lowered herself beside him on a fallen beam. "You should hate me," he said. "For what?" "For lying." She shook her head. "You didn't lie. You survived." He stared at her hand, holding his. "What now?" Kaif leaned against his shoulder. "Now," she said, "you finally get to live." He turned toward her. For the first time, his eyes held something fragile. "Hope." She squeezed his fingers. "I married well," she whispered. Daniel squeezed back. And for the first time since the war ended, peace didn't feel like a treaty. It felt like a choice they would make together.